Hey there, nation. This is Commander CheapSkate, and welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. Once again, this is another edition of our battle reports. It is I, Commander CheapSkate of the Schwarzwald Free Companies of the Empire, versus my opponent, Short and Stumpy of Clan Bodison's Rorasakars of the Dwarves. So this one's a 3,000 point battle. Basically, it's my Empire Griffin formation build that I got the inspiration from Warhammer.empire.com from Holy Hand Grenade. And this is versus basically a dwarf gun line. So let's see what happens when dwarves and humans go at it at 3,000 points. Alright, so with the war horn sounded, let's go and talk about our militaries for this battle. So the first one is the Empire Army, the Schwarzwald Free Companies. Let's go and start with our Lord and Hero choices. Our lords consist of Gregor von Drachenfels the Grim. He's an Arch-Lector, armed with a great weapon. He's also equipped with armor of meteoric iron as well as a Dawnstone. Next comes Victor Helsbrad of the Wilds. He's a Battle Wizard Lord with a level 4 upgrade. After him comes Hauptmann Hans Jaeger and Königswinter. They are a captain of the Empire with full plate armor, lance, Pegasus, Talisman of Preservation, as well as a charm shield. After him comes Hauptmann Dieter Moons, the Griffin Guard. He is a captain of the Empire with full plate armor, great weapon, as well as a Batter Senate Bear upgrade, and he's equipped with the Griffin standard. Our next character is Sir Tybalt Kraus, the Vagrant Knight. He is a captain of the Empire with full plate armor, lance, shield, Barter Warhorse, as well as a Crown of Command. Next comes Maximilian the Max. He's a battle wizard with level 2 upgrade with a Dispel Scroll, and rounding out our character choices is Father Obadiah the Terrifying. He is a warrior priest equipped with heavy armor, great weapon, horse with barding, and equipped with the terrifying Mask of E. Now it comes to our core choices. We have the Vagrant Brotherhood, which is 19 Knights of the Order, with Standard Bearer Musician and Inner Circle upgrade. They are also equipped with the Steel Standard. Our next core choice is the Queen's Rangers with 10 archers with 5 archer detachments attached to it. And the last core choice is Rommel's Rangers, which consists of 12 archers. Our special choice is one massive unit called the Black Company. It's 38 great swords with a Standard Bearer Musician, and they're also equipped with the Standard Discipline. They also have 2 detachments, the Blue Company, which consists of 20 halberdiers, and the Red Company, which also has 20 halberdiers. Our next special choice is also Blitzen, the Great Cannon. And finally, for our rare choices, we have Donner, which is a Hellblaster volley gun, and the one and only Panzer Baron, the steam tank. And that brings us to a grand total of 3,000 points. And let's talk about my opponent's army list, which is Clan Bodison's Rorasakar. It's a 3,000 point dwarf army with a dwarf gunline build. So let's start with the lords and heroes. Our lord is Lord Doyle Finway of Clan Bodison. He is a dwarf lord equipped with shield bearers, a shield, a hand weapon, as well as a dwarf pistol. And he is equipped with level 2 rune of iron and a rune of parrying. So he's kind of like one of those unkillable lord builds. Our next character is Joseph Bugman with Bugman's Rangers upgrade. Our next character is Bobian Sorg the Cursed. He is a Thane with great weapon, battle standard bearer upgrade, and he's equipped with the Master Rune of Viola, as well as level 2 rune of slowness. Our next character is T-Day Wilhelm, the head hitter. He's a rune smith with hand weapon shield, a level 1 rune of spell breaking, and the master rune of passage. And our next character is Grim Burluxon. That guy's the engineer that gives, bonuses to ballistic skills for war machines and all kinds of craziness. So that character's kind of a beast. Now onto our core choices. Our main unit is Den Rodensoker, which is basically 36 dwarf warriors with full command. Our next core choice is Den Grone Dreist, which is 38 dwarf quarrelers with full command as well. And for our special choices, we have the Tranken, which is 15 dwarf miners, Den Karl Yester, which is a grudge thrower equipped with the level 1 rune of penetrating and the level 1 rune of accuracy, Den Pol Martina, which is a cannon with the rune of disguise, next Den Rugler Claes, which is a cannon with the rune of burning. And our rare choices is 19 dwarf rangers, Bugman's Rangers. They have full command as well as Bugman Rangers upgrade. Our next rare choice is Den Sayungen, which is a organ gun with a level 1 rune of accuracy. And our final rare choice is Dan Jan Rees, which is a gyro bomber, and that brings our grand army total to 2,999 points. And for those of you who are wondering what's up with the names on this one, basically these are the Norwegian translations of famous members of the Boston Red Sox. In fact, the word Bodison is the Norwegian word for Boston in Boston, Massachusetts, and Rorasakar basically means Red Sox. Now, if you're wondering why my army is called the Boston Red Sox for dwarves, it's not because I'm a baseball fan. It's also not because I'm a Red Sox fan. The reason why is because this army was purchased by my friends when my friends and I went to Boston, Massachusetts for a vacation last fall. So they purchased these models and they kind of distracted me and they got it for me as a gift. So that is why this army is named after the Boston Red Sox, because my buddy wanted one of my buddies is a big, huge Red Sox fan, so that's the name of this army. So with that being said, let's go on to deployment. Alright, first we start off with the Dwarves deployment. As you can see on this one, they deployed on usually the side of the board that I usually deploy on, so it's kind of different, kind of fighting at this angle of the board, so that was kind of neat. So this is layout the left-hand flank. As you can see, the main body is kind of castled up in defense. We have the Warriors, then Rotor Soccer with their Lord Doyle Bodison lined up on the left-hand side, as well as our Runesmiths in that unit as well. We have the Organ Gun in the center with the 2 cannons in the back behind the hedges, as well as a Grudge Thrower located behind that hedgerow. And then on the right-hand side of that, we have the 38 crossbows with Grim Burluxon, as well as the Battle Standard Bearer located in that unit. So you can see there, their flanks are pretty well secure on that one, and so the main body's kind of focused in that corner. So they're dwarves, so they're not moving at all. I'm gonna have to come to them, so this is going to be a real challenge for me. As for the deployment in the center, they don't really have anything in the center. They left it empty. We have 15 miners located right there, but those guys will deploy later because, as you know, miners have ambush, so they'll deploy later on. And so this picture is really mainly focused on the right-hand flank. As you can see there, we have Bugman's Rangers taking cover behind the hedges there, as well as the Gyro Bomber, which is stationed behind the building there as well, that little gay house there. And so basically they have a weak center, strong flanks, so that is deployment for the Dwarves in this battle. And so now we're talking about deployment now. So you can see the left-hand flank. I am deploying the other side of the board, which is kind of a strange location for me. Usually I'm used to fighting on the other side of the board, but you know, whatevs. So as you can see here on the left-hand side for the battle formations, I have deployed my Blitzen, which is aimed at the Rangers located on that side. Following next to them is the Vagrant Brotherhood with Father Obadiah and Sir Tybalt Kraus to sweep around and hit the flank of the crossbows. So that is deployment here on the left-hand flank. In the center, we have the Black Company with the Queen's Rangers acting as a screen from long-range fire, so those poor archers will be absorbing long-range fire to protect my great swords. Located in that unit, we have my Archlector Gregor von Drachenfels, Victor Helsbrad, the level 4 wizard, and Dieter Moons, the Griffin Guard, who's also in the formation as well. We have the blue as well as the red companies kind of flanked on either side of those locations with the detachments of the archers kind of in their flanks as well. In the back there, we got Rommel's Rangers at the flank with Maximilian Max included, and then kind of smack dab in the middle on that right-hand side, we have Hans Jaeger and Königsvictor, who are parked along the other flank. And finally, we have the right-hand flank. As you can see there, all I have there is Donner, the Hellblaster volley gun, as well as Panzerbearer, the steam tank, set up to charge into the Dwarf Warriors. So that is the layout for my army. And just kind of give you an idea what the analysis for the army is. It's a Griffin formation build, so the idea is that we're using redirectors to protect and defend my detachments from attacks. Primarily uses Emperor archers to basically do this. As highly offensive lists, which made for maneuvering in close combat, so when I have magic and support, so that's pretty much the strength of my army. The Clan Bodus and Rotosocrates, however, play on the Dwarf Gunline build. They use crossbows and artillery to wheel down units before engaging. They also have miners and rangers to act as interceptors to deal with oncoming threats, so I gotta look out for those guys. Basically, it's a general fix and flank tactic where they kind of fix you with close combat in the center and then flank you on the left-hand side or right-hand side. And so that is the layout for that army.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
And with that little homage out of the way, that brings us to the beginning of Dwarf turn number 1. So as you can see, the Dwarves basically get the first turn on this one, and we start with the movement phase. So pretty much the only movement that the Dwarves do is they send their Gyro Bomber marching forward, and it takes cover behind the wood. So even if I do try to shoot at it, I still have a -1 to hit it because, you know, that's Dwarves for you, and Dwarves don't move. And since these are Dwarves, they don't believe in magic, so we don't use magic whatsoever, and that brings us into the shooting phase.
This is my boomstick!
So Bugman's Rangers open up with the Vagrant Brotherhood and kill 2 knights with their crossbows, so that part was kind of rough. Luckily for me, the Grudge Thrower misses the Black Company, and so that shot goes way out of the distance. But the twin cannons do not miss, and they open up on the right flank. They fire at both my Donner, which is the Hellblaster volley gun, as well as Panzerbearer with the other cannon. Panzerbearer suffers 3 wounds, and so Donner takes 2. So right off the bat, my right flank is basically kind of ate up. And since there is no combat, we skip this turn and move on straight to the Empire.
They're sellswords. We're willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
Alright, with that, that brings us to the beginning of Empire turn number 1, and that starts us off with the movement phase. As you can see in this picture, the Vegan Brotherhood attempts to charge the Gyro Bomber, but basically they fail to make their roll. The rest of the main body, which consists of the great swords as well as the halberdiers and all the other infantry units, the main body moves upward and marches forward as quickly as they can. They try to take cover behind the ledges over there in front of the cathedral. Hans Jaeger and Koenigswinter take cover behind the church, and so that's the movement for this part of the board. And moving for this side of the board with Panzerbaron. Panzerbaron generates steam points, attempts to march, but because of his lack of wounds, I rolled up and we misfire. So because that Panzerbaron takes another wound, so that thing is basically going nowhere. So that's kind of sad. And since I'm fighting against dwarves, magic phase is pretty much useless for me since the dwarves are able to basically dispel everything I have. They can generate dispel dice just like everybody else, and in fact they also get a +2 bonus at dispel as well because dwarves are naturally immune to magic. So because of that, my magic phase is pretty much shut down in this turn.
This is my boomstick!
And with that, that brings us to the shooting phase. Donor the Hellblaster rolls a shoot and only generates 4 shots, and so we open up on that unit of Dwarf Warriors, the Red Sox. But unfortunately, I only managed to kill 2 of them, so because of that, the Dwarves basically goes on to live. My archers are only equipped with regular bows, so they're out of range of shooting anybody. And then my cannon tries to shoot at the Dwarf Rangers, but we just way overshoot the target and it ends up off the edge of the table. So that is pretty much shooting for me, so that is the end of this round.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
And since we don't have any combat going that round, we basically start off with turn number 2 for the dwarves. So you can see in this picture, the Gyro Bomber flies over my Vegan Brotherhood, and because they're doing a bombing run, because that goes into the compulsory moves for the movement phase, that bomber inflicts 5 wounds on his bombing run. It kills like 3 of my guys at first with its first bombing run, but because when my opponent rolled the scatter dice, the bombing template fell on my guys again. It killed another 2 guys on top of that. So, man, that Gyro Bomber, man, it is a beast. I mean, granted, the explosives are only strength 3, but against toughness 3 models, I mean, that thing just murders entire units. So, I gotta definitely deal with that dwarf gyrocopter big time. And because they're dwarves, no one else moves. So, that's pretty much it for movement. And since they don't believe in using magic either, we skip the magic phase.
This is my boomstick!
And into the shooting phase. So because of the shooting phase, the dwarves will try to shoot with one of their cannons, but they roll a misfire and it destroys itself. And so with that was pretty cool for me. At the same time, the second cannon destroys Donor, the Hellblaster volley guns. Managed to slip off that final wound on that one. And then the organ gun opens up on Panzerbaron. But luckily for me, though, even though it generated like 12 shots, the shots don't wound Panzerbaron at all. So that was kind of nice. Which brings us to the next portion of the shooting phase. The Grudge Thrower opens up on my Black Company and manages to kill 5 of my Great Swords. So that part was kind of sad. And the Dwarf Corlos open up upon the Queen's Rangers that are blocking in position for my Black Company, and of course they managed to kill them all. I mean, we got 40 crossbowmen opening up a 1 unit of 10 Rangers. I mean, what would you expect was going to happen? Those poor guys, man, those guys got killed last to the man. And since there's no combat, that takes us to the Empire turn number 2.
They're sellswords. We're willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
And with that, that takes us directly into the movement phase. So as you can see in this picture, the Vegan Brotherhood marches forward and skirts the forest, preparing to charge the crossbowmen in the flank there, as well as Rommel's Rangers move up to fill the gap that was created by the Queen's Rangers. So besides that, everybody kind of moves up cautiously on that one. Hans Jaeger and Koenigswinter managed to successfully charge with the organ gun, so he take that thing out of the commission. So that's kind of nice. And the Panzerbaron manages to rumble forward a couple of inches because of the poor rolls that I made on the steam points. So that's pretty much movement for the Empire. So with that, we move on to the magic phase. I attempt to 6 dice below onto that huge block unit of crossbowmen to kind of whittle those guys down before I send my troops charging into it. However, my opponent's Runesmith basically burns up that rune of spell breaking, so they automatically dispel that spell. Lucky for me, though, it wasn't the level 2 version, so the spell wasn't destroyed, and that takes us directly into the shooting phase.
This is my boomstick!
So all my archers open up on the crossbowmen, but we only managed to inflict 2 wounds, so that part was kind of sad, so much for shooting on that side. And with this picture, the Panzerbaron basically opens up with the grape shot onto that unit of dwarf warriors, and we managed to kill 5 more of those stunties. So 5 warriors are down for the count. And in this picture, the crew of the Blitzen load up their cannon with grape shot and basically go giant shotgun style, like dunk hunt style, onto that gyro bomber, and we managed to blow that thing right out of the sky. So gyro bomber no longer a problem.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And with that, that takes the beginning of the combat phase. So Hans Jaeger and Königswinter managed to kill 2 of the dwarf crewmen of the Hellblaster volley gun. The dwarf crewmen are unable to injure my character back, so because of that, I win combat. But unfortunately, dwarf crewmen all have stubborn special rules. I think it's called Gunner's Pride is what it's called. So because of that, the dwarves test on unmodified leadership every single time they have to break from combat, and so those dwarves are going nowhere. So now we're facing down that really beefy looking dwarf loader. I mean, look at the size of the guy's arms, the biceps on those things, man. I mean, that guy's like arms is bigger than my like Empire captain's body. So let's see if that guy can punch me back to the afterlife. So let's see what happens.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
Alright, that begins at the beginning of Dwarf turn number 3. As you can see in this picture, Bugman's Rangers try to charge into the flank of my Vagrant Brotherhood, but they failed to do so. So that's moving in this picture. And in this picture, the Dwarf Crossbowmen make a swift reform and then line up for combat because they're expecting to get charged the next turn. Same thing with the Bodison's Rodstalkers, the War Dwarf Warriors. They do a swift reform and turn the flank. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, the Dwarf Miners also appear on this table turn because the ambushes rule, and they prepare to charge into the flank of the Panzerbaron. So that is movement phase. And since these are dwarves and they don't believe in magic, we go straight into combat because shooting is out of the question now.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
As you can see in this picture, Hans Jaeger and Königswinter managed to kill off the last remaining crew of the volley gun, and they overrun right into the cannon. So that is close combat for this round.
They're cell
We're
swords!
willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
And that takes us to the top of turn number 3 for the Empire. As you can see in this picture, the Panzerbaron generates 3 steam points and plows right into the open flank of the dwarves. So because of that, we ended up killing 7 of the Red Sox in that battalion. So that combat was kind of cool. Alright, in this picture you can basically see the charges are going on this side. The Vagrant Brotherhood as well as the Green Rangers attempt to charge at the Crossbowmen, which are the Trunken, but they're unable to do so because the Rune of Slowness. It kind of stops them from charging and making contact, so because they only move forward. And the rest of the army basically kind of moves forward as well. So you can see I got my great swords in column. You got the red and blue companies on either side as well as Rommel's Rangers, so we are slowly making progress. Slowly but surely.
Hadouken!
Alright, that takes us to the magic phase. I decided to sick dice the doors below and managed to get it off, and I managed to kill 16 crossbowmen in the process, so that was pretty epic. Victor Hellbrass almost cut that unit in half for the crossbowmen, so way to go, dwellers from below. However, I did cast it with Irresistible Force. I got like 3 6s on that roll, so because of that I rolled for the miscast, ended up with miscast 6.
Klaatu, Marata,
Which wasn't so bad. Victor Hellsbrad managed to take a wound on himself, and he managed to kill 6 more members of the Black Company. But other than that, you know, we killed 16 crossbows, so I guess I'll live with it.
This is my boomstick!
And so with that, we go into the shooting phase. Rommel's Rangers as well as the Cream Rangers open up on the Dwarf Crossbowmen. We managed to kill 3 of them in the process, so that was kind of nice. We kind of weakened them up for the next charge, next turn, next time we get a chance to go at it. The Blitzen, the cannon, tries to open up on the Bugman's Rangers, but unfortunately misfired. Rolled a 6 on that one, so won't be able to fire this turn. So that was shooting in this phase. And that takes us to the combat round. Hans Jaeger as well as Königswinter managed to kill off the crew of the last cannon, and then basically they overrun into the Grudge Thrower now. So that was pretty much combat in this round. And when it came to the close combat against the Dwarf Warriors against the Panzerbaron, not a single flue was awaked on either side. So that combat ended up being a wash on that part.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
Alright, so we get into the movement phase now for the dwarves. To the left-hand side, I didn't get a chance to take a picture of it. The Bugman's Rangers and his Bugman and his Rangers try to charge to the rear of my Knights of the Vagrant Brotherhood, but they failed to do that charge, so that charge doesn't happen. And in this picture, as you can see in the middle, the Dwarf Crossbowmen with Grim and Borlaugson basically do a combat reform, and they form into a square because they're preparing themselves for charges for the next turn. And in this picture, the miners charge the flank of the Panzerbaron. So that is movement for the dwarves. Since we have no magic because these are dwarves and dwarves don't believe in magic, and since there's no shooting because everything's in combat, everything else is moved, we go into the combat phase. And so in this picture, as you can see here, the dwarf miners as well as dwarf warriors manage to inflict one wound on the Panzerbaron. They win combat, so combat performance to the warriors inflict more hits on the steam tanks. The warriors reform to face that. And as you can see in the back there, Hans Jaeger destroys a gross door and overruns into the flank of the crossbows.
They're sellswords. We're willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
Alright, and that begins movement phase for turn 4 of the Empire. I forgot to take the picture, but prior to this picture, what happened is that units have to deal with the various units throughout the entire formation. So the Queen's Rangers and the Blue Company seek out to deal with the Dwarf Warriors. And this picture, as you can see, the Panzerbaron uses 3 steam ports and grinds out to kill 6 more dead Dwarf Warriors. So that's what occurs in this picture here. And with that, that takes directly to the magic phase. Victor Hellsbad decides to cast Woes Below once again onto that unit of the Dwarf Warriors, the Bodison's Rodstalker. Unfortunately for me, though, the spell didn't do really well on that one. A lot of the warriors kind of survived that. We managed to kill about 5 Dwarf Warriors, so the magic phase was not that effective on that group. Because, you know, dwarves are pretty strong, so dwarves taking strength tests, not much of a big deal for them. And to make matters worse about that magic phase, I did roll Irresistible on that one, so I miscast 5 on that one.
Klaatu, Miranda,
Which was kind of bad. I killed 5 more of my Black Company great swords, and I managed to put another wound on top of Victor Hellsbrand. I mean, the worst part is about this battle is that like the most damage that my great sword is taking is not from my enemy. It's from my wizard who's nuclear blasting himself every single chance he gets. Every single time he tries to cast a dice. Maybe I need to stop 6 dicing things. Maybe that's the moral of the story. But yeah, that's magic phase on this picture.
This is my boomstick!
And with that, that takes us on to the shooting phase. You can see in this picture the right scouting element for the detachment of the Queen's Rangers turns to open up on the Bugman's Rangers, and we managed to kill 3 of those dwarves with longbow with bowfire, believe it or not, which is really amazing because, you know, dwarves are like toughness 4 standard. I was going up against with strength 3 shots, but I just rolled out of the box, and then when all my shots hit, and then like 3 of them also wounded, and they failed the armor test, so that was like a 1 in a million shot. So well done, Rangers, well done.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And with that, that takes us to close combat in this phase. As you can see here, we just basically myrtleize those dwarf crossbowmen. As you can see there, my Vagrant Brotherhood, we lose 1 guy. I think we managed to inflict 6 wounds total onto that unit of crossbowmen, and Hans Jaeger as well as Königswinter managed to inflict 2 more guys on top of that, so we killed about 8 of them altogether. Even with all the leadership deductions because of flank charges and, you know, and charging and all that kind of nonsense. It doesn't matter though because dwarves have like leadership 9, and so because of that they managed to stick it out. So even though we won combat, dwarves aren't going anywhere. In fact, that's why the situation worked on those guys. And just because dwarf leadership never ever quits, that unit basically combat reforms in order to bring more attacks against the Vagrant Brotherhood. So yeah, that's combat for this part.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
And because dwarves take guff from Nomad, as you can see in the move phase, the Rangers start off by charging into the detachment of archers of the Queen's Rangers, so they make that charge no problem. Luckily for me, though, I have the members of the Red Company kind of backing them up, so in case they should break through those archers, my guys can receive the charge next turn and still be able to hold off and defend the flank for my Black Company.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And since magic as well as shooting is irrelevant for the dwarves in this battle, we go straight to combat. As you can see in this picture, not surprisingly enough, the Dwarf Rangers managed to slaughter the members of the Queen's Rangers and managed to overrun the Queen's Rangers and right into the Red Company. So now my Halberdier detachment is now groups in high-end combat with the Dwarf Rangers. So we'll see how that combat goes. And combat over here continues to be the constant grind fest that you were just seeing in the previous rounds. My Empire guys managed to inflict, 9 wounds on top of this unit together between Königswinter and Hans Jaeger, as well as the Vagrant Brotherhood. And the dwarves, the Gronendreis, which basically means the Green Monster in Norwegian, because they're named after the Green Monster wall in Fenway Park. But anyways, the Crosswomen managed to fend off and managed to kill only 3 more of my Imperial guys. They killed 3 of the Vegan Brotherhood. But even though they lost by 4 in this combat, these dwarves, man, I mean, their leadership does just not quit. These guys do not run. I mean, the legendary mythology of dwarves never running and being stubborn as all get out and being as tough and as solid as like the very stones that make up their mountains is true, because these dwarves, no matter what I'm doing, these guys, man, they are not going anywhere. They are standing their ground. So that part was actually kind of cool. So that's pretty much combat as well as a turn for the dwarves in this round. So onward for the Empire.
They're sellswords.
We're willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
Alright, and that puts us on to the movement phase of the Empire. As you can see in this picture, I charge in the Rommel's Rangers into the flank of that Crosswoman unit. So now that Crosswoman unit is being hit from the front by the Vegan Brotherhood, from behind by Hans Jaeger and Königswinter, and now from the flank from the Rommel's Rangers. As you can see from my black swords, basically I turn them in the opposite direction. I'm having them move out to deal with the Bugman's Rangers. The idea is to get them into a position to where they can charge in the flank of the Rangers and get that unit into 2-1 combat. And since Max doesn't want to get into that combat, Max basically separates from the rank and file of Rommel's Rangers and just kind of chills out in the middle there to kind of give buffs to my troops if they need it. And moving this picture, as you can see here, the other detachment of Queen's Rangers charges to the rear of the Red Sox there on the back of the Dwarf Warriors. We also have the Blue Company also charging the flank as well. So now we have multiple combats going on. This is melee right here on the right flank. We have the Miners hitting the flank of the Panzerbearer. We have the Red Sox hitting the front of the Panzerbearer as well. We have the Blue Company hitting the flank of the Dwarf Warriors, and now we have Archers in the flank in the rear as well. So this group is just basically an all-out just massive melee between two sides. So the Crosswomen and the Warriors is just a mess. So we'll see what happens with the combat heard on this turn.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything.
So we're now into the combat phase because my magic gets shut down by the dwarves because I can't cast for Jack if my life depended on it. And since shooting's not really happening because everybody's engaged in close combat, we move directly into the combat phase. And as you can see in this picture, the Blue Company, the Queen's Rangers, as well as the Panzerbearer managed to kill off 7 more Dwarf Warriors, so that part's kind of nice. So that's what happens in that picture. They fail to return any attacks back to me. Dwarf Warriors in the back and flank don't manage to get off any hits, and the Dwarves in the flank of Panzerbearer, as well as the Warriors in the Panzerbearer, don't manage to inflict any wounds on that because it's a beast, and so it's weathering all those blows, so that part's kind of nice. So that is combat in this picture. And then there's combat in this picture. Oh my god, this ended up being a slaughter for my Red Company. The Dwarf Rangers managed to kill 6 of my Halberdiers. I only managed to kill 1 Dwarf Ranger in return. With flank bonus, flanks, as well as charge bonus, we win by 3. Luckily for me, though, I'm sorry, not win by 3, I'm sorry, we lose by 3, actually, I'm sorry. But luckily for me, though, because my standard bearer is in range, we're able to re-roll on any failed leadership chests, and they also get to go off of my general, my Arch Elector's leadership as well, because he's also in that unit. So that is the only reason why these guys are staying in here. So it's basically the leadership bubbles of my army combined with like hatred and re-rolls from battle standard bearers and leadership rolls from my general. That's the only thing that's keeping these guys going. So yeah, I'll take it. And in this picture, we finally managed to kill that unit of crossbowmen. So with Grim Burlock Sin, the Battle Standard Bearer dead, as well as the rest of the Crosswomen, the rest of my army basically combat reforms and faces different directions and starts moving out to deal with different threats. So we have Königswinter as well as the Vegan Brotherhood. They're marching to deal with the flanks as well as of the Dwarf Rangers that my Red Company is taking on. As you can see there, the Rommel's Rangers decide to move to the right to kind of start dealing with the problem of the Dwarf Warriors, as well as the Miners taking on Panzerbearer, the Blue Company, as well as the other members of the Queen's Rangers. And combat on this side of the board, oddly enough, is it kind of goes into the Dwarves' favor in this one. They managed to kill a couple of my guys. I managed to kill one of theirs. But because of the low differences between scores and not much is happening, it just ends up being a bogged down mess on this part of the board. So because of that, not much is happening, which is, oddly enough, I'm okay with, because my guys are basically holding up these pretty strong units of Dwarfs. So yeah, we'll keep that going all day long if we can.
Far over the misty mountains rise.
So that takes us to the beginning of Dwarf turn number 6, and since there's no movement, there's no shooting, there's magic, we go straight to close combat.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything.
As you can see in this picture, combat doesn't really go over all that well in this one. Panzerbaron takes 2 more wounds, and my boys are unable to inflict any more wounds onto the dwarfs at all. So once again, we're back into the stalemate on this picture. And combat in this picture ends up being like another bloody battle. My Red Company Halberdiers is actually going to be quite proud of this battle. They take out 4 of the Dwarf Rangers. At the same time, though, they manage to kill 6 of my guys as well. So my side loses by 2, but thanks to my general's inspiring presence rule, as well as the hold your ground with the battle standard bearer, that unit's not going anywhere either. So luckily for me, we pass our break test. So once again, we're just kind of stuck in combat in this round as well.
They're sellswords.
We're willing to use blood magic to put you on the throne, but we're not willing to pay men to fight.
Alright, that takes to the top of turn 6 after movement. As you can see in this picture, the Vagrant Brotherhood charged into the flank of Bugman's Rangers, and Königswinter as well as Han Jaeger charged into the rear of the Bugman's Rangers as well in that picture. So we got them in a 3-way attack on that one. And so because of that, I decided to take my Black Company, the Great Swords, and turn around and have them march back the opposite direction towards where the Panzer Baron as well as where that combat's taking place. And I'm not sure why I did that. I mean, this is my very last turn, so this turn's going to determine what happens in the game. So yeah, that was moved for this phase. And that takes us directly into the magic phase. As you can see in this picture, we score us a victory on this one. We cast Dwellers Below once again. Victor Helsbrad decides a 6-dice Dwellers from Below, and we managed to kill 3 Dwarf Warriors, and Lord behold, we managed to also kill Lord Doyle Finway himself, so we finally killed the general off as well. Unfortunately, all the Dwarf Warriors passed their panic check, so they didn't run. But yeah, way to go, man. We finally killed that general, so that was kind of nice. We took out that general, took out a couple of Dwarf Warriors, so nice way to kind of like end the battle.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything.
Alright, so that's on to the combat phase. As you can see in this picture, we managed to kill a couple more warriors, I think 2 miners, as well as another dwarf warrior. So that's pretty much combat on this side of the board. And in this picture, you can see here, we finally scored a final epic victory. The Red Company, Hans Jaeger and Königswinter, as well as the Vagrant Brotherhood managed to kill off the last of Joseph Bugman and his Rangers. So those units basically combat reform and start heading out towards the battle on the right-hand side. And with that, that brings us to the end of the game. As you can see here in this picture, we still have the Red Sox still fighting the Panzer Baron. We still have the Drakonkin, the miners, still fighting against the Panzer Baron as well. As you can see on my side, we got a little bit of the Red Company left. We still got half of the Black Company still left. We have Hans Jaeger of Königswinter. We have as well as my general, as well as my warrior priest, as well as my captain, Tybalt Kraus, as well as Father Obadiah, those are their names, as well as my general, Gregor the Grim, as well as my wizard, Victor Helsbrad, and Maximilian Max, oddly enough. So all those guys are now marching with the Queen's Ranger towards the other side of the board, but since we're in turn 6, that is the end of the battle. So on to the after-action report.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
So, in the end, for the after-action report, this ended up being a victory for Commander CheapSkate. I got something like 2,500 victory points versus the 120 that he got for killing my Hellblaster volley gun. I mean, he inflicted a lot of damage on my units. He really did, but he didn't really destroy any one of my single units. Not really. Even with the Queen's Rangers, when he destroyed those guys, he didn't really much do that because the detach was still there. So, technically speaking, that unit was still around. The only unit he managed to destroy was my Hellblaster volley gun. So let's talk about the things that we learned about this battle. So far, dwarves on combat are no joke. I mean, they could take on all comers and they will tie you up. I spent most of my game just locked in combat with just like a handful of units, for the entire game. I basically took on, the Crossbowmen, the Rangers, and then the Dwarf Warriors. That was it. So 3 units. I was engaged in close combat, 3 different units, and we were going nowhere on that one. So go figure for that. Rune of Slowness and the Dispel bonuses the dwarves are using are basically just a major pain. They locked down my magic phase like it was nobody's business. I couldn't get off any of my spells whatsoever. And the Rune of Slowness prevented me from engaging in the close combat. So, I mean, I spent just 2 turns just trying to charge in that unit of Crosswomen. So that kind of tells you something about that unit. So that was kind of good for them. And their artillery. Oh my god, Dwarven artillery. Their cannons are killer with those runes they have, as well as that Grudge Thrower and Organ Gun. I mean, those things can destroy entire units. I mean, mean, they would. I mean, if my opponent's artillery wasn't tied up as well as it did with my chaff chaser with Captain Hansinger and Königswinter, I mean, those artillery pieces could have just destroyed my guys like it was nobody's business. Then when that grudge thrower hit and destroyed that huge chunk of my black sword, my black company with my great swords, and then that organ gun hitting my Hellblaster volley gun, it was just bad. The Jarrow Bomber, I now fear that thing. I was really not sure what that thing could do until I saw it cut across my unit of knights like that, and I just can imagine just going after hordes like goblins, definitely goblins. I could see this thing like destroying goblins like it's nobody's business. Elves, I think all elf species, high elf, wood elf, dark elves, all the elves, I think they really have to be afraid of this thing, because that thing with a 5-inch blast radius and it could drop multiple drops. I mean, that's just bad. The MVPs in this battle, however, were Rommel's Rangers and the Queen's Rangers, oddly enough, because they screened my forces from crossbow and artillery fire, so they sacrificed themselves to protect my main unit. Also, the Panzerbaron, as always, saved me in this battle. They tied up those warriors from turn 3 onwards, so they stopped those guys from engaging in close combat at flank, so that really helped out as well. Hans Jäger and Königswinter, oh my god, those guys destroyed all those dwarf artillery just on their own. I mean, that is just beast. Charm Shield, the Talisman Preservation saved these guys more than I like to admit. It's a really good kit out. When that cannon tried to open up on Hans Jäger, he basically blocked with the Charm Shield. You know, you got the Talisman Preservation protecting them from the combat as well as shooting as well. So, way to go. I'm definitely liking the Pegasus captain in this army. And as for my army, this army is still fun to play. It's good at maneuvering and supporting one another. It was a very, very bloody game. Lots of close combat. It took, a lot of us, like almost an extra turn for me to secure victory on that stuff. It was just awesome stuff. So because of that, I'm really happy with the way the army works. I like the synergy of all the leaderships and the buffs that each of the units give one another, especially when they work in harmony. So very, very satisfied with this build. So I'm still very satisfied with it. It's still a lot of fun to play, and this gun was a very, very good game to play. So I finally got to see what my guys could do up against the Dwarf gun line. So yeah, that pretty much does it for this battle report. So on to the next one. Bye.